Hey guys, Luton here. So today I'm going to be going through my thoughts on the second Battlefield 5 closed alpha. Had quite a few rounds on this through the period. It was pretty fun, but I'm going to go through and talk about that, talk about the mechanics, the overall experience, and generally where I put myself at this point in time. Not just on the game, but of course the player base as well, which has a significant role to play in how enjoyable this is going to be as an experience, and if this is going to be a Battlefield which is worthwhile to get. I'm going to talk about aircraft as well, tanks, destruction, matchmaking, weapon play, medicing, all the stuff. So stick with me guys, it's a long video, but we'll get through it all. Now, this was the best round that I had. I think I played for about 11 or 12 hours in this closed alpha period, and what I want to do is I want to run through and just kind of talk generally about my experience and how I've been finding the game to be. Now, the most notable thing about this round is that it wasn't a full round. We're playing here with probably about 32-ish players total, I guess, about sort of 16, 17 aside, I think, and it varies as we go along. Now, the reason that's significant for me is that most of the games that I've played have been at the, full server side, so within 64. And when that's the case, I actually find that, unsurprisingly, as with like BF1 and 4 before it, I hate 64. 64 to me is a bit of a clusterfuck. Just, you can't move, you can't breathe, you can't think, because every single time you think you're making some progress, you're shot in the back, you're shot in the head, you're shot from the side. It's 3-on-1, 2-on-1, and it's just, it gets very, very frustrating. It also gets very tiresome very quickly. Now, some people love that style of gameplay, some people love that kind of non-stop grinding clusterfucking, which kind of got popular, I guess, around sort of Battlefield, when they brought Metro back in, and you have the classic Metro 64. Now, some people like that because it's just a good way of kind of grinding and stats, and maybe people like it as well because you get a fairly unrelenting level of kills, it's just, you have a good opportunity to get kill after kill after kill after kill. Now, okay, let's get into the game a little bit and we'll just talk about some things. So, we've started off and we're pretty even, as you can see on the scoreboard. This guy annoyingly backed over me. I should have stepped to the side a little bit more, but don't worry, it's not the end of the confrontation. And the thing that I liked about this round a lot, and you can see we're actually about like 4 or 5 players down right from the beginning here, but we still fight on. Now, many rounds that I played, having 4 or 5 less players would automatically lead to you being completely dominated. But for some reason in this round, it just stayed balanced, and I kind of was, like everyone was just kind of doing their job and trying to get in on things, which is why it plays so well. Now, balance in BF5 and BF1 and BF4 has been an ongoing, continual problem, and it's no exclusion in BF5. Now, people are going to say, oh, LT, it's just closed alpha, it's just closed alpha. Here we are, and here is the vengeance. Now, people are going to say, oh, it's just closed alpha, LT, so you can't judge it, blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm sorry, but no, I actually, one thing I felt about this closed alpha is that a lot of people are not really kind of just experimenting or whatever. It's actually felt like a lot of people are really getting on with the job. That's the one thing which I have found. However, despite that, I have also found that, the rounds have just been continually really imbalanced. It's just been, you would be amazed, but like basically the last sort of 24 hours that I've been playing this, 90% of rounds that I have either joined in on or been in on have ended in a classic steamroll. Just complete domination to an insane degree. And that to me is a very, very bad sign. Because right now we have just a fairly bare bones setup. Most of the classes are only kind of rocking with one weapon setup. So it's a fairly, not much meat on the bones setup of the game. And that means that really what I would expect to see is people kind of just really getting into the action and heavily getting into the action. But it's not. It's still not. And I do find this weird, and I found this weird before when it comes to alphas and betas, which is that you would think that like in an alpha and beta period, because people don't really have to worry about their stats in like a big sense or any kind of, meaningful way, that they would just kind of throw themselves into it and just be like, yeah, let's get on with this. Let's get some gameplay. Not the case. People still are incredibly hesitant to put themselves at risk. People continually still try to maintain their KDs. And the thing that I find really weird is that when I play rounds, I care about my KD. I don't want to just get ruined every single round, but I don't go like out of my way to pad it out. I don't get out of my way. And it's like, that that was a fucking disaster right there. You see, this is what I'm talking about. I'll keep that stuff in, but I'll keep my sweet like long range semi-auto shots in there as well. Also, I'm doing 6-1 at this point. 6-2. Okay, all right. And this is the thing that I've always found really weird when it comes to Battlefield, is that you see players who really are trying hard to, maintain a decent KD. And as I say, to a point that is understandable. You don't want to just get annihilated, right? But to a different point, it's kind of like, it never seems to work. You know, the people that sit back, there's the very few players who like get in a tank and sit way back, or snipe and sit way back. And there's very few players who'll do that and then, you know, maintain a strong KD. So it makes me wonder why the hell people bother. It's really weird. Right, what I was trying to do right here, because you can see we've lost quite a few flags, what I was trying to do was get in this vehicle and cane it through the map so I could try and start, you know, securing some points from further back. However, this happened to me, and so that was a disaster. Right, but anyway, so back to people's focus and just generally what they're doing in the game. And that's what I found in most rounds. And that's different in this round. You can actually see there's a good amount of struggle back and forth. There's people taking flags backwards and, you know, so there's a bit of kind of general control. Now, I was up at A for quite some time there because obviously we were just kind of involved there. But whilst I was doing this, we've lost like C and F and D was in the process as well. But you can see what's good with this round is immediately we've started to kind of contest some of these and start to take them back, which is unusual considering how most of the rounds that I've been playing have played out, because usually once they get those flags it's really hard work. You know, it's like you're taking back one at a time. But you can see that we've kind of like switched and flipped these around here. Now, one criticism I can think of straight away is people saying, well, you know, that's just because you got less players, so it's just kind of ring around the rosy, you're getting to flags that are abandoned, you cap them, you move on, then enemy come in, they take that flag off of you, and so on and so on and so on. It's true, and that does happen sometimes when you have less people on a big map. However, because of that fact, it does mean that you're trading bases, which does keep people moving around. And that means you get the kind of more fluid, intermittent combat. Whereas when you have a big map full of players, what tends to happen is the slightly more aggressive side tend to quickly take domination, and then once they have got that, they tend to bottleneck, and it just becomes this grinding sort of misery for the defenders who have at that point, you know, not really any option to break out. I would rather have a round which is a tug of war and fluid and kind of moving around, so you get to play in different places on the map, you get lots of different encounters, lots of different engagements. I would rather have that every single day of the week than have like one round where, you know, everybody pushes to the last two flags and then it just becomes this horrible bottlenecked choke fest. I just don't like that kind of gameplay, and that's why I prefer, you can see, look, even though, yeah, we're trading bases, everyone's moving around, people are capping in bases and moving on, you know, and that's just so much better to see. It's so much more enjoyable to have that in your gameplay. Another thing that was different with this round is, again, because we had less players, guess what? Less snipers. It was quite surprising, but just having a few less snipers, and also, yeah, thank you very much, having a few less snipers makes a big difference. Or even the just kind of medic snipers, you know, with the Gewehr and you know, having the optic on there, because what you find, and what I have found from the games that we've played where you have more people on, everywhere you move it's like ping, 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 like everywhere you move it's like shot, 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 you know, they're getting at you. Everywhere you move around on the map there's someone having a pop at you. You know, it's like, it makes it very irritating, not difficult, just irritating to move around the map. And the analogy I used on my stream was like, when you were kids and you're sitting in the car and your brother or sister, and they're like flicking your ear, flicking your ear, flicking your ear, flicking your ear. And it's like, and after a while you just go, will you fuck off? Fuck off! You know, that's what it feels like with the snipers. Well, maybe you didn't say fuck off when you're a kid. But that's what it feels like with the snipers in this game. You know, it's like, it feels like all the players who are just trying to get on with capping flags and doing that kind of stuff and actually playing the objective, moving around the map. Forget about playing the objective, killing. You know, just moving around the map and engaging other players. And then, you know, it's like every time you step out from a building, sniper. Every time you move across an open area, sniper, 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 sniper. And you just think like, Jesus H. Christ, can I please just, you know, take a breath? And that's what we didn't have on this round, and it made a massive difference. Like, it felt so good playing this round where you didn't have that all the time. Like, every time you move from a position, you're not getting like clipped for like 20 or 30 health all the time. You know, it just made it so much more enjoyable this round because you didn't have that. And that's another reason why it just felt like this was a really good, fun, enjoyable round, because it meant we were able to focus on like capping points, you know, the micro engagements that we had around some of these points. It meant we were able to kind of focus on the gameplay and the gunplay without actually having to constantly fear being, you know, picked off by some guy who's just sitting back watching other people fight it out. You know, that's the thing, because that's the reason, let's be real, that's the reason most people take sniper. And I think as I highlighted last time around, when in some of the gameplay, you know, I take sniper and I rarely take sniper, and I was astonished how easy it was to pick people off. And like I said before, there's some players who are top level sniping, quick scoping, whatever. They do very, very well, but the majority of people are not that, and they're just a pain in the ass, because it's like everybody else who's actually kind of fighting getting on, of course they're focused on what's happening with them right there, and it always feels like bullshit to me that the people that are fighting around flags and actually getting involved in what's going on there have to be penalized by these arseholes who are just sitting back, and they just get to sit back and take shots at people who are probably never going to return fire, and it's like, it's no wonder these people end up with a pretty sweet KD at the end of the round, because of course they've faced very little threat. And the other thing that's surprising is it's amazing how many times I, with like a weapon like the STG, will take, I get like an initial shot on me from like a sniper, turn around, quickly get eyes on them, bang, 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 and down they go. You would be amazed the amount of times you can like counter snipers in this game with like just an iron-sighted STG or something, which is laughable, and it's sad, and it just kind of again highlights the kind of incredibly poor skill gap that exists there. It's pathetic. So let's talk about some of these situations which are happening around the flags and around the bases here. So it just feels like it's worth pointing out, it's obvious that the cap zone for some of these flags is actually pretty significant, which gives you a lot of options as to where you want to situate yourself. So doing what I did right there and trying to find yourself a position which is not right in the middle but on the edge, and then it gives you a good line of sight and a view around the area so that you can try and control people coming in. That's always a beneficial thing to do. Trying to flank around and not just run headlong straight into a point as and when you're able to do so is always a beneficial thing to do. However, sometimes of course you do want to just throw yourself in there. This is another thing which I often kind of suffer from when I'm playing, because my mentality to playing is literally to get on those flags, get on those flags, secure the points. You can actually see my team is doing pretty solidly right here. We're still about 60 tickets down, but we are sort of trying to sort of turn things back here. Now, right there, and that's a good, okay, so you can see we've actually balanced the player count now to about 16 aside. So this is good, we're on the kind of level right here. But our scores, yeah, we're losing at the moment. But when it comes to getting on the flags, what I tend to want to do is just get a presence on there. And sometimes that means taking a risk, like literally just throwing yourself into the flag and hoping for the best. It's just literally throwing yourself in there and hoping that you're going to sort of have some success. Now the thing is, again, I don't care too much about my KD. I don't care if I go down. So long as the job gets done, I'm not too concerned about it, which is why I'll kind of kamikaze sometimes and just literally run in. Now, again, that might seem stupid to some people, and it might seem kind of suicidal. However, you would be surprised the amount of success I've had. One big thing that I tend to do in FPS games, and again, I guess there's going to be plenty of people who would be critical of this, but what I tend to do is I find that people often don't expect you to just kamikaze in. It actually often catches people quite off guard, because they tend to expect people these days to be much slower and, not take so many risks in terms of putting themselves in there. So you would be surprised how many times I've just come charging into a point where, there's active and heavy fire happening, and it catches people off guard. And of course the same thing goes for like when you just quickly flank around someone, come behind, you can get like 2 or 3 guys down every single time. But that's happened even on a few times where I played Siege, and that's probably more just to be clear, I'm not like some big Siege player or anything like that, but the few times where I did play on Siege, there was a couple of rounds we played where I had some good success by just literally charging straight in. Now, that's definitely not always going to be a sensible thing to do, but all I'm trying to say is that there is definitely something to be said sometimes for, doing something unexpected, even when that thing that is unexpected might seem counterproductive or even stupid. And it's just a case of kind of gauging it and figuring out, like, how self-assured do they feel? How strong do they feel? And it's like very often you want to be looking at kind of how has that flag been going? How has that base been going? How did the round go? Do they feel more confident? And that's often where I find I can exploit it more, depending on like how overconfident an enemy are. Many rounds that you have where an enemy like have been dominating you, I often find that situation is actually pretty good for you sometimes. If your team is getting annihilated, if you flank around a little bit more careful or a little bit more aggressive from the rear and so on, you can be surprisingly effective, because they're so self-assured and in such a confident position that it really gives you a nice opportunity to kind of pick off those people who aren't paying attention because they don't think that they have to. Okay, but let's talk about the experience of the game in terms of Battlefield 5 so far. Have I enjoyed the game? Well, at this point, by this round, I was enjoying this round of gameplay. However, overall, I would probably say it felt to me like kind of 5 out of 10. And I know that's kind of like a really middle of the road, but honestly, the thing is that if I had to base it just on the rounds that I had, it would probably be more like 3 out of 10. Because a lot of the rounds that I had were misery. It was a classic, just absolute Battlefield steamrolling, etc. So the reason I put it more like 5 out of 10 in terms of, and that's not rating the game, that's just rating my gameplay experience, okay, just to be clear. So I'm not talking about like, do I rate Battlefield 5 as a game overall 5 out of 10? No, because the game's not here, so you can't make that judgment, right? But just in terms of my gameplay experience from the closed alpha, this one and the previous one, what do I gauge it at? About 5 out of 10. Because like I say, the larger amount of people and the clusterfucky nature of it just makes it a misery often. And even when you're doing all the right things, you can just get clipped classically from above, behind, to the side. You get one guy and there's actually 2 guys behind him and they waste you, you know, all of these kind of situations. So in terms of the gameplay itself, it just felt very irritating like that point of view. I think there's a good sniper moment coming up right here in terms of, remember earlier on how I was saying most snipers in the game can't hit the button. Okay, here we go. Sniper, here, he sees me. Oh dear. Didn't work so well, did it? Okay, so the gameplay. Now, the reason I say 5 out of 10 though, interestingly, that's actually kind of skewed. Because like I say, in terms of actually the rounds that I had and the fun that I had, the majority of the time, like probably 75% of the round that I played from this closed alpha was just annoying. However, the rounds that I had that were good and the rounds that I had where I had squad play going on, balance it back up again. So what I'm trying to say is, the rounds which I had which did play well were enjoyable enough that it kind of brings up the ones that I had that were negative. Which I think is a good sign, because that kind of shows that if you can find the gameplay, if you can find maybe a good squad to work with, maybe if you can find a server which attracts the right kind of people in terms of the people who will actually kind of battle, fight well, etc. If you could find that, you will find a good experience. The gunplay is pretty enjoyable in this game. I've seen a lot of people talking about the time to kill. That was a great kill by that guy. Jumped straight over me, flipped around 180, and then managed to like get on me and drop me down. That was excellent. But yeah, in terms of the gameplay, I've seen a lot of people talking about time to kill being changed in this version, etc. For me personally, I really don't feel like it was like a major deal. I mean, I could care. I don't care either way. Bring it back how it was. Leave it as it is. I don't really care. The main reason being because it reminds me very much about people who get really anally retentive about weapons in Battlefield. It's just kind of like, the thing is, you can get into all of that if you really, really want to, but I just feel like it doesn't have a significant impact on the game to really warrant the level of discussion. I've never felt that's the case with Battlefield, probably to my detriment. But, you know, when it comes to weapons in Battlefield, as I have highlighted when I talked about it in Hardline, it's just kind of like, there's a real misleading level of importance placed on weapons, weapon adjustments, weapon balances, all of these kind of things. Because, of course, it makes great YouTube content, you know, like, oh, this weapon's had this change, what does it matter? Like, let's post around, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of this kind of stuff. People love it, of course. They've loved it forever. It's never going to change. Me saying that I don't agree isn't going to matter in any shape or form. However, for me, you know what makes a bigger difference than time to kill? Somebody shooting you in the back, somebody shooting you in the head, someone shooting you from the side, being 2 or 3 on 1, you know. Those are the things which make a difference. Same as when we're talking about best weapons, as I highlighted in Hardline. We did this experiment years ago now. And it's like, there are going to be certain situations where your weapon choice or the time to kill or any of those kind of things is going to make a big difference. Of course, that's true. But most of the time, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, you get the shot first. They get the shot first. You're in a bad position. They're in a bad position. They're behind you. You're behind them. You're above them. Those are the things which make the difference in Battlefield 70-80% of the time. The rest of the time, yeah, for sure, there's going to be some kind of like, you know, element of importance in there. But majority of the time, no, not the case. As I think just highlighted right there. Because when I came to this flag before, I didn't even know where that guy was. Guess what? He shot me in the back. He probably could have killed me with any weapon that he had, right? When I was returning, he strangely decided not to move, which is what I just tell him right now. Just, you know, if you've just killed a person, it's generally a good idea to move, because when they come back, they're going to probably be looking for you right there. So I returned to the flag. Guess what? He's right where he was. He doesn't know where I am. I had the advantage, and look what happened. He goes down. He didn't even get to return a shot because he couldn't locate where I was quickly enough. So, it's like I could have had any weapon. I could have had a sniper rifle, could have had a machine gun, whatever. There's always going to be limitations. You have like SMG or whatever. But, I reckon with some fairly controlled fire, I probably could have taken that guy with a pistol, and it's like, it has a much bigger impact. Time to kill, well, I guess it didn't really matter to me right there, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's the case. Let's talk about aircraft, because I've been looking forward very much to having a talk about aircraft in this game. Aircraft have zero impact on what's happening on the ground. They have zero impact on the game. I couldn't even tell you of a single instance in this alpha or the previous one where I've even had any kind of situational thing happen related to aircraft. To be honest, they feel like an ambient thing which is happening controlled by the computer. You just see them flying around and occasionally they crash and so on and so on. It's exactly like I said before the game came out. It's exactly like I've said before. In my opinion, aircraft are just a thing which just need to be taken out of the game. They're just a fucking waste of players. I don't understand the purpose of them. In BF1, the only reason why they had any impact at all was because they'd fly over and drop literally a bucket of grenades onto you. But beyond that, who cares? That was it. The bombers in BF1 were the only thing which were kind of annoying, but apart from that, forget about it. The only time aircraft have ever been any good is helicopters. Get rid of this fixed wing nonsense, seriously. Let's get back to having helicopters in games. Obviously we're not going to have that here, but if we have future Battlefield, keep it helicopters. Let's have some nice transports. Let's have some scout helis. Let's have some attack helicopters. But get rid of these fucking fixed wings. I'm sick to death of it. They're just a complete waste. They don't do anything. They're just up there flying around and around and around and around and around, just doing their own thing. And you just don't even notice. You don't even notice. I literally... I can't even think of one situation in this game. Oh, no, I can. I can think of one situation. That was where I was hilariously on an anti-aircraft gun, shooting an aircraft in the face. It was flying straight at me. It was able to fly straight at me with me hitting it permanently in the face. It flew away, managed to turn around, and then I continued shooting it with the anti-aircraft gun, and then it just, crashed straight into me. That's my experience of aircraft in this game so far. But the rest of the time, they're just flying around like an ambient thing. And they just have no impact on anything. What about tanks? Are tanks different in this game compared to BF1? Yeah, so far pretty much I have been enjoying the balanced level of tanks in this game. They seem pretty slow, so they don't just come kind of charging in from all over the place, which means it's very, you're able to kind of move around them, get shots onto them, etc. Tanks can be powerful for sure with the level of destruction on the buildings. Getting a tank shell into a building can really annihilate people. The machine guns have good range as well, so they can kind of pick people off at range. So basically, of course you can take the hits as well. You're in a tank. But it remains to be seen. I mean, we haven't seen everything in this game, but I really hope we don't have the Battlefield 1 situation where there's tons of little tanks kind of driving around just ruining people, and then as soon as they take a shot, it's full speed reverse to repair up. There's been a little bit of that happening in this game, of course, where you see people whoring the tanks because they want to just try and, rack those easy kills. But again, most of those players are stupid enough that you can kind of just flank around them or shoot them or keep them permanently suppressed because, tank players are the biggest snowflakes of the Battlefield world. It's they take one round and it's like having a huge panic attack and full speed reverse all the way back to base. They take one round and they're run away crying. So it's okay, all right, you do that. But so the tanks have been pretty easy to suppress down, and I actually feel like they're pretty balanced. I'm sure we're going to end up in some situations where on some maps you're going to have some arsehole who's found the perfect sweet spot where he can just stick his tank and then fire in. But that's just Battlefield. That's been the way forever and ever and ever. But yeah, for me personally, tanks overall and in vehicles overall in general for ground vehicles have felt pretty balanced. They're easy to take down and they can have some benefits. So that's what I mean. They're kind of 50-50, flip a coin. In the right hands they can be powerful, in not they can kind of just be whatever. So it's just kind of, as it comes, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It just feels about right. So let's have a look at what's happening in the round. We've been fighting between E and C, just kind of tug of war backwards and forwards. You might see me trying to communicate to my team where some of the enemy are and trying to give them some heads up communication. But the chat and the communication, I leave it turned off because it's the same Battlefield as ever when it comes to communication or chat or anything like this. It's just 90% abuse and just trash talking and a very small amount of people. However, I will say try to be positive if you're going to talk in chat, because if you try to be positive and you try to give people good information, sometimes that can encourage people to do the same thing. The same as where people say, oh, I want to play, but there's never people on microphone, or I never have people to play with. try and find some people, you know, talk to people. If you try to be positive in the game and you try to like give good advice, etc., you'd be surprised like how many times people will actually return that back and actually get involved with you. So yeah, I would suggest to do that. But yeah, so we've been battling it forward. You can see we're still on about 428 to 410 tickets, and we've really been sort of tug of warring between sort of 3 flags each here, sort of switching them around. But the interesting thing when it comes to the flag control that I like with this is that, like I say, whilst you're doing that kind of tug of war, the choices for flags that you go for can be quite critical, because obviously the nearer they are to one another, but it's not always just about distance. You know, sometimes there's sort of geographical situations which you kind of need to take into consideration, like the distance between C to A on this map, so off to my right now to A, that's more open. You've got like this big open ground. Whereas between E and C, we've got all that building cover. So to a degree, it's better for us because we can kind of control that situation a little better. You know, we've got more cover to try and move between those two. And of course, A is nearer to the enemy point, so we want to try and control those on our side. Also, D is one. Let's talk about D actually, even though we're not there right now. The corridor at D it can be really horrific. You can have people standing down there with a machine gun, sniper rifle, just picking people off. I've got a good clip on another video where I'm sort of standing midway down, and I think I get about like 6 kills in a row, just like bang, 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 because people just keep running down there and you just get clipped. So I would actually suggest that corridor. It's a pretty good one on D to get some smoke down there, and it's also a good one to flank because you get people that are really overconfident, and when those overconfident people just start sniping, they lose a lot of situational awareness, and that's when you want to be able to like flank around. So around that D flag, around that whole corridor there on the sort of lower level, I would totally suggest try flank that around when you can, because you can usually catch like 3 or 4 people at the other end who are sniping down off guard. Let's talk medicing, seeing as I'm being medicked right at this second. Medicing, I think, personally, has greatly improved in Battlefield 5. And also, literally, as I just picked that up, these ammo drop points. I love these things. The ammo and medic drop points are a massive game changer. They're probably one of the best things which have been added to the game, because there is nothing more annoying than, of course, not having enough ammo. I also like the way that these are some of the biggest changes, actually, in terms of, you know, just things that have improved. So I would say, basically the wait time in terms of having to wait to respawn, it slows the gameplay down a little bit, and it makes people think more carefully. It makes people value their life a little bit more, I guess, because of that kind of wait time. But to be quite honest with you, a lot of the time you don't have a choice in terms of valuing your life. You have to kind of do what you need to do, and sometimes that just you just get killed. But yeah, the ammo and health drop points, those really change the game up. They really do. Because it means you're able to kind of refill ammo on the go. You don't have to chase people around, which means that if you are managing to survive, you can then restock your ammo more successfully. It also helps you to plan routes around the map and where you want to move to. So those things are really big game changers. As ambient and small as they are, I would say those are some of the biggest things for me. The ammo and health pickup points. I really think those are some really big changes. But when it comes to reviving as well, being able to pick up your squad mates, if you're in a squad and you can pick people up, even if you're not a medic, that also is a massive game-changing situation. And I have found, you know, it's not something that happens very often in terms of actually reviving people, because when your squad mates are down, of course, if you're not a medic, it takes longer to pick them back up again. However, there are situations where that can be a really big, you know, strength. So say, for example, you've just had a firefight at a flag and like 3 of your guys have gone down, but you've cleared the flag. Well, instead of them just being stuck, even if you're not a medic, you can get up your medic who can then res the other 2 people. So it can be, so even though it takes a little bit longer, it still gives you a really big strength, a really big advantage to be able to get your squad back up and then either defend that point or immediately push to another. So honestly, those are some things there which are really good changes. And the other thing is it benefits your squad. I mean, right now I've pretty much been soloing. I've been playing with 1 or 2 people here and there as well. But if you get a squad together and you work well and you pick people, you pick each other up and you stay together and you know, resupply and you do all the right things, I would imagine that the benefits to having a coherent squad in this game will be way significant. Now, overall, I would say that's probably still how most people are not going to play, judging by just the general state of the community. However, if you do get your team together and you work hard for the fight and, you know, you keep each other up, you watch each other's backs, I think there's going to be some more tangible benefits to doing that in this game, and I think it should make the gameplay more enjoyable overall. Now, in terms of respawning in and having less ammo, for example, that's another big change to this game. So, of course, if you just spawn in on your squad, you get back into the action more quickly, but you have less ammo. This actually sometimes is a genuine consideration, although not so much, because you might think, well, you know, there is some benefit there, and it's true. Like, sometimes I do think, like, do I want to spawn in on a squad because they're in kind of like a situation I don't want to... But what I find what I find dictates my choice of spawning more is where I need to be. So more than worrying about ammo, I'm worrying about where are the enemy, where is an easy point that I can pick up and cap, or just where do I need to reinforce. Those are the things that I primarily am thinking about when I come to spawn back in again. Not, you know, am I going to have an extra 10 rounds or whatever, okay? Now, the other thing is that even if you do come in on your squad and you don't have much ammo, there's these health ammo points are fairly, you know, they're basically at every flag. So you're nearly always near-ish to them, to the point where you should be able to get like 1 or 2 kills, and then you're probably near enough to go grab some ammo. Do you know what I mean? So therefore, it's not so big of a deal. You know, it doesn't sort of hinder you that much. I really felt like I should have had that one. I should have tapped fire a little bit faster. So we're coming to the end, so I want to talk about two things, destruction and also kind of matchmaking and balance. Now, destruction so far in this is good. It's better for sure than other Battlefields that have come along. I definitely like the more compartmentalized micro damage which can happen, like stuff falling off of roofs, and, you know, the jumping through windows is very nice, even though it sometimes feels like people are making windows out of balsa wood for some reason, but whatever. But is it like a true kind of like sandbox destruction level? Not so much. It kind of... there's so many set pieces. Do you know what I mean? There's so many set pieces. When you look around the map here, look at all this metalwork, look at all these big things. Can you break those things down? Can you snap them in half? Those trucks that are right there in front of me, could you shoot at those? And could all like the metal poles and stuff come falling off? Could all the rail tracks, would they come falling off? Nope. You know, the wooden blocks right here, could they do that? Nope. Can I knife through that fence? Nope. You know, it's like there are set buildings which can be heavily destroyed, but I would say it really feels like only about 50% of the map. You know, there's a lot of stuff which just can't be destroyed, interacted, deformed, anything like that. So it's far, far, far away from what people want. But the destruction of the houses is good. And again, depending on what kind of map you're playing on, then of course that's going to make more or less of a difference. But, you know, again, it's like this thing right here to my right. You know, that kind of like the bit of bricks and whatever and some of this metal work. You know, if you were to like lay a charge there or fire a rocket at it, that should blow up. If there was a guy sitting behind that brick wall, you should be able to fire a rocket at it, that wall should explode, and the guy should get killed. Would that happen? Nope. You know, so it's like, you know, this right here, all this brickwork, right? Look at this brickwork. You know, you should be able to shoot at that and blow the hell through it. Would you? No. You know, so it's like, I don't really feel like it's there. Now, the building of stuff as well. The reinforcement of defenses, like this guy right here that I just shoot his head off because he's sticking his head up above the reinforcement. But yeah, all of these sort of bunker reinforcements and stuff. Are they any good? Do they really have like a heavy impact on the game? The answer is no. They are interesting things. They sometimes have a minor impact on certain engagements. Do they alter the course of the game? No. The only thing that I've noticed where they do have an impact is stuff like Grand Operations, which I don't enjoy. But Grand Operations, I know, controversial, but I don't even want to get into it, really. I just find it, like, boring. I think that's boring. Anyway, Grand Operations, because you kind of can build up around the defensive point and blah, blah, blah. And if you didn't do that, then it would be just open season, you know. But on Conquest and so on, you can put these defenses in, and, like, around the B flag on this map, it can have some benefit because it can stop you being permanently sniped all the time. All of the situations, though, for these kind of defenses are really specific, you know. It's like very, very specific things. And it's not something that you're just kind of using to give yourself a little bit of extra defense. I would say like 90% of the time, you rarely have any use for them. It's very, very, as I say, specific. It's very, very specific situations where that happens. So I've said some good things about the game. I've said some bad things about the game. But let's talk about one thing which concerns me more than anything. I don't know how finished it is yet, but basically the matchmaking and in general balancing of rounds is still a giant problem. And I don't mean like I've had a few rounds which were bad. I mean it's a big problem. Out of many, many rounds, and I know it's only a closed alpha, blah, 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 right? But out of many of the rounds that we played, or that I have entered in on, I get placed into rounds which are just like total domination. You know, like literally steamroll. Steamroll, 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 steamroll. And I know this has been the case in Battlefield Forever, but they really need to work on it. They really need to work on some kind of better matchmaking skill system, some kind of ladder system. Other games do it, and other games are more successful with it. Why can't they do it? It feels like if they were to focus on that, the way the gameplay unfolds, the way your teams are balanced and set up would be so much better. This game still feels like Battlefield 1 in the sense that whenever I get to the end of a round, it feels like the top 5 people have had 3 or 4... What the fucking hell? Oh, I remember this one. That was where I was just like, what the fuck was that, Luton? What was that? That was just such a misery. I was just like, I can't hit a barn. Anyway, yeah, so it feels to me like often the top 4 or 5 players are having like 3 or 4 times as much impact as the whole of the rest of the team. Sometimes we finish rounds where literally like the top 4 or 5 players will have 75% of the score and the KD. That to me is not a game which is balancing well. And that is not to me a community which are engaged in a comprehensive way with what is actually going on. I mean, I can't really understand that. You know, it's like, and I'm not just going to call out people and be like, oh, they're noobs, they're scrubs, blah, 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 blah. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's clearly a very heavy majority of players who just don't seem to be able to really get into the meat of the game for whatever reason. Maybe they're new, maybe, I don't know. It's really hard. I find it really hard to figure out, like, who these people are. Like, are they just new players, or is every round like that for them, or what's the deal? Like, I don't understand. I don't get what it is. But what I do know is that they can't be having a great time because, you know, coming into a round and just getting rinsed is never particularly fun. And it makes me question, like, well, if the matchmaking was much better, then people that are of that kind of capability were to put it into rounds together, their rounds should be overall more balanced, which means they should feel like they have a much better enjoyable time. Similarly, if you're a very high skill player, then coming into a round with a load of people who are much lower skill than you means that you're just going to clean up. But it doesn't mean that you're playing particularly well. It just means that you're like ruining people who are not at the same level as you. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, it has to be incredibly specific and, you know, very fine-tuned or anything like that. But all I'm saying is if you put some people who should be hopefully of a similar skill-ish together, the rounds should feel more of a battle or more of a struggle. Maybe we would actually see less of the kind of BS-y things that we see in terms of people, you know, padding out their stats and stuff if they were facing people who were kind of a similar level. You know, it would certainly make people's lives more difficult. You know, I've asked for this forever. I've said this forever and ever and ever. I've said this for like the last 5+ years, that what Battlefield needs more than anything else is some kind of proper ladder system. Not a competitive system necessarily, but just like a skill ladder system. Maybe where you're in different brackets, different categories, tiers. Now, of course, you always have the situation, the same as in Overwatch, where you have people making kind of like alt accounts, where they'll come in because they just want to rinse all the low-level players, blah, blah. Put a pin in that, you know, and just think about the benefit overall. I think the game would benefit significantly from having even some kind of effort there. And it's not going to happen in this game, but I really feel like if Battlefield wants to be anything in the future, they need to try and get this in there. It feels like it's the biggest thing that needs to happen, because I don't think I can cope with another game. As enjoyable as some of the gunplay and some of the gameplay is in this, I can't cope with another game where you're either steamrolling or being steamrolled, because neither of those is fun. You know, steamrolling, it's just literally like shooting fish in a barrel, and it's just not fun. You know, it's like it gets boring, really, really boring. Right, here's what I was talking about in terms of the reviving of squad mates. So I run over, grab my guy right here, and then I didn't even have to worry about the other guy, because as we turn around, he's also being mediced up. But you see, that was a perfect example of what I was saying before about when, you know, some of your squad can go down, but you've secured the area, you've secured the situation, and even though I wasn't a medic, I was able to help get my guys back up. And then look, we can push on together to get straight on to the next flag. And you can see actually now, we've been losing for the longest time, but this is right now where things start to change. So it's actually been towards the end of the round, and I would actually say, I don't think like what I did there in terms of rezzing my guys up you know, wins the game or anything like that. But what I will say is the fact that we were able to cap C and then collectively push down here to D makes a difference in terms of how many flags we have and how we're able to pull some of those points back. One thing I do hope we get with Battlefield 5 is maps where the flags feel as good as they do in this one. Like, each flag on this map feels like you have to approach it a very different way. There's very specific positions which are beneficial to you, but also there's very different kind of gameplay styles which work for you. In terms of B, you're of course looking at a longer distance. In terms of A, it's the more open flag, so there's a lot of kind of like peeking from defilade up and down, and kind of like moving around, flanking and all that kind of stuff. That benefits you there. D, it's a very kind of close quarter, but a multi-tier level flag, so that kind of gets interesting in terms of where people are positioned. You've also got a lot of kind of ambient structure around it. C, it's a very kind of town close quarter battle map where you're kind of fighting through buildings. E, same kind of thing, but it's got a little bit more space around it. And then F, it's a kind of train yard sort of industrial site, so you've got kind of like a lot of hard corners around those. So each of the flags plays really, really differently, and you have to continually adapt yourself to suit those situations. So that's an interesting thing with the game. And, you know, to be sure, you could say that for any number of flags and maps and stuff. What happened right here? I started to get shot in the back, and I got so sick at this point of being shot in the back, not specifically this round, but just in general for the play session that I've been having, and I don't know why, I just started getting shot in the back, and I was like, no, I'm not getting shot in the back again, so I threw myself off. But anyway, back to the flag stuff. So look, I know for sure it's true to say that, like, on Battlefield in general, you know, there's some very good kind of differentiation between flags and so on, and that they play differently. However, not so much. You know, it's like there are some, but when you really think about it, think your way back through some of the maps in Battlefield 1, even on Battlefield 4, and it's like, it's surprising how many of those flags on some maps are very, very similar. Now, on this map, like I say, they all kind of have an overall sort of theme of the environment, of course, because they're all kind of like contained within the same map, but they definitely do play out very differently. I would say more so than maps on other Battlefields, I think. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but for me, the more I sort of played this one and the more I felt like it, the more it felt kind of more customized around each sort of area, and I have to sort of adapt the way that I wanted to play in terms of distance and also kind of situational awareness. So I really hope that continues. I hope that's something which they have consciously done and it hasn't just kind of happened by accident because they were trying to make a pretty map. Because if that's the case, I love that to be the case. Even if it's just kind of got a mix, you know, even if there's like a map and it's like, you know, half of them are more open and half of them are more closed, you know, something like that would be quite nice. But like I say, the more I sort of think back to other maps, even if I can't name the maps on top of my head in BF1, it's like very often you'd have sort of, I don't know, sort of like 2 or 3 of the maps are more kind of like town-centric kind of urban closed areas, and some of them are more open and so on and so on. I think that works very well, kind of like having to change up the styles. I just think it's something noteworthy to point out with this one. So back here we are. Now I was trying to take E for quite a long time here, and I was feeling very stressed in this moment because like there was nobody here with me. Basically, if you were watching, what happened was as I approached E, I could see that there were 2-3 of the enemy who had capped it, but I didn't really want to go 3-on-1 with those guys because I didn't feel like I was going to win that situation. So what I did was I let them cap it, and then I watched them leave, so I waited that they were far enough away that I could actually come in and start capping, because then once you've started to cap a flag, as you see right here, hopefully one of my guys is going to help me out. And by the fact that I'm sitting up here, my guy comes in lower down, they start to engage, and I think my guy even killed him, and then also some of my squad mates have come. No. Okay, actually, the guy coming in didn't kill him, but I did. So actually the guy coming in there was really helpful. He flushed that guy out, and then you can see we're able to actually cap this flag. So yeah, it worked out pretty well for me, but equally, the guys that ran away could have just come back and you know, tried to steal this flag off of me. You know, this is something which I often think, I wonder if this is something that they should try to add more emphasis to in Battlefield. I thought there was going to be a tank or something coming in, so I was switching up. I wonder if they should add more emphasis toward defending of flags than retaking or taking flags, because it's so much better to defend a flag. What happened there was I saw that guy, and then instead of just going one-on-one, I decided to kind of reposition myself so I could get a slightly more controlled line of sight, which turned out to be beneficial. Now the end of this, yeah, so anyway, I wonder if they should try to put more emphasis on defending, like returning to and defending flags, because it's much, much better to do that than try and secure a new one. Now unfortunately, at the end of the round, we just got disconnected, so I didn't actually have a final scoreboard, so I have to throw in the scoreboard from earlier. But look, at the end of the round, everybody seemed to have a really good time on both sides. Everyone's like, GG, nice round, and so on and so on. It was the best round I had so far in the alpha, and it played very well. Tell me your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much indeed for watching as per usual. I'll be back with some more very soon. This is LT. See you next time.